In a sport where persistence is tradition and silence is survival, brave baseball players broke the mold, not with home runs, but with honesty. Their stories are raw, honest, and reshape what it means to be an athlete. From dugout secrets to national headlines, this is more than a list, it's a legacy. Subscribe, leave a comment, and join us as we bravely climb to victory's podium. Bryan Ruby never set out to make headlines. He just wanted to play baseball and write songs. Growing up in Pennsylvania, Bryan was the kid who juggled batting practice with guitar lessons, chasing two dreams that rarely shared the same spotlight. While his teammates fine-tuned their fastballs, he was scribbling lyrics between innings. But as he climbed the ranks in the minor leagues, one truth followed him like a shadow: his identity. The world of sports, especially baseball, had long been a place where queer athletes felt invisible. Still, Bryan carried on in silence, chasing hits on the field and harmony in the studio, all while hiding a core part of who he was. In 2021, everything changed. With one brave announcement, Bryan became the first openly gay active professional baseball player in the United States. It was not just a personal milestone, it was a cultural moment. He knew the risks. Coming out could have ended his career or made him a target in an industry slow to change. But Bryan chose truth over fear. His story exploded across national headlines, and suddenly, he was more than just a utility infielder. He was a voice for thousands who had felt erased in locker rooms and stadiums. The courage it took to step forward did not come from fame. It came from years of quiet battles, late-night self-doubt, and the need to make space for others like him. But Bryan's story does not end on the diamond. Off the field, his second act as a country musician began to soar. His lyrics reflect a life lived between two worlds: sports and art, masculinity and vulnerability. Through his nonprofit, Proud to Be in Baseball, he now mentors LGBTQ+ youth in sports, proving that being out and being an athlete are not mutually exclusive. Bryan Ruby redefined what strength looks like, not through silence or conformity, but through honesty, melody, and the crack of a bat echoing in the face of tradition. And just when you think that was brave, wait until you meet the next one. But first, what would you have done in Bryan's shoes? When Anderson Comás stepped onto a baseball field, it was never just about the game. It was about chasing a dream most kids from the Dominican Republic only dared whisper. Born with a fast arm and a bigger heart, Anderson fought his way into the Chicago White Sox's minor league system with raw talent, relentless discipline, and the kind of fire you cannot teach. Every pitch he threw carried more than just spin. It carried the weight of sacrifice, distance from home, and the silent hope that being different would not derail his shot at greatness. He was not just playing for a team, he was playing for something deeper, for a future where he could belong both as an athlete and as himself. But behind the wind-up and the stats, Anderson was fighting a much tougher opponent: fear. In a sport steeped in old-school masculinity and locker-room bravado, being openly gay was almost unthinkable. For years, Anderson kept that part of himself hidden, unsure if baseball had room for someone like him. That changed in February 2023. With one heartfelt Instagram post, he came out, not just to fans, but to teammates, coaches, and the entire sports world. He said he was proud of who he was. It was not a press release, not a marketing move. It was courage, plain and simple. He risked everything, not for applause, but for peace of mind, and in doing so, gave others permission to stop hiding too. And the response? Nothing short of powerful. Teammates embraced him, fans rallied, the league stood behind him. Anderson's story shattered yet another barrier in professional sports and reminded us all that authenticity is its own kind of strength. He may not be a household name yet, but his bravery makes him a giant in the eyes of those still afraid to be seen. Baseball is no longer just his career. It is his platform, a place where truth steps up to the plate and shame finally strikes out. What do you think? Can sports truly be a safe space for everyone? Let us know in the comments and keep the conversation going. Solomon Bates never set out to be a trailblazer. He just wanted to pitch. Growing up in California, baseball was more than a sport for him. It was a safe place, a path, a passion that gave him structure and purpose. Drafted by the San Francisco Giants and climbing the ranks of the minor league, Solomon was focused on the game. He had the arm, the power, the presence, but behind every fastball he carried a secret that weighed more than any training session. In the hyper-masculine world of professional baseball, being gay felt like the one pitch he was not allowed to throw. Yet even in silence, Solomon knew who he was. He was not afraid, just waiting for the right moment. That moment came in August 2022, when he posted a heartfelt message on Instagram, coming out publicly as gay. It was raw, bold, and refreshingly unapologetic. "I'm not afraid to be who I am," he wrote, and the world listened. Solomon became the second openly gay player in minor league baseball history, following David Denson, but the first to do so while still actively chasing the major league dream. His announcement did not come with a press tour or corporate approval. It came from a place of frustration, pride, and deep personal truth. Though the Giants had just released him, Solomon made it clear. His story was not over. In fact, it was just beginning. Since coming out, Solomon Bates has emerged as a beacon for LGBTQ+ athletes across all sports. His message is simple but powerful. Authenticity is strength. In a world that often tells queer athletes to hide or play small, Solomon chose visibility. He chose to stand tall on the mound and say, "This is me." His courage is not just about one post or one game. It is about every kid watching who wonders if they can be both gay and great at what they do. And if you think his story ends here, think again. Solomon is still throwing heat, and the next chapter might just be his biggest yet. When Sean Conroy stepped onto the mound for the Sonoma Stompers in June 2015, he was not just pitching baseballs. He was pitching a new chapter in the sport's history. With each wind-up and throw, Sean carried the weight of silence that had hung over professional baseball for generations. But unlike those before him, he decided to do something few had dared. At just 23 years old, he publicly came out as gay, becoming the first openly gay professional baseball player to compete while still active in the sport. It was not about headlines or heroism. For Sean, it was about playing the game he loved without hiding who he was. Sean's journey to that moment was not paved with certainty. Growing up in Clifton Park, New York, he had always felt a deep connection to baseball, but a quiet disconnection from the locker room culture around him. The fear of not being accepted, of being seen as different in a world built around conformity, haunted many of his early playing years. But baseball gave him structure, purpose, and an escape. His teammates might not have known his truth, but they knew his work ethic, his focus, and the fire he brought to every game. It was that trust, built inning by inning, that gave him the courage to speak up, not just for himself, but for every queer athlete still waiting in the shadows. When he took the field on Pride Night after coming out, he did more than strike out the opposing team. He struck down stereotypes, fears, and outdated norms. Sean did not become a celebrity overnight. He did not crave the spotlight. What he wanted was simpler and far more radical: to be seen and respected for exactly who he was. And in doing so, he made space for countless others to believe they could do the same. Would you have had the courage to stand alone like he did? Let us know what you think, and stay tuned, because there are more trailblazers whose stories deserve the spotlight. Long before headlines knew his name, David Denson was just a boy with a bat and a dream, swinging for something bigger than baseball. Born in California in 1995, David grew up in a working-class family where sports were more than a hobby. They were a lifeline. He showed promise early, smashing home runs with the kind of raw power that made scouts lean forward in their seats. By the time he entered the Milwaukee Brewers minor league system, the buzz around his name was real. But behind the swing and swagger was a young man carrying a truth he had no blueprint for, because no one before him had said it out loud in the world he was stepping into. In 2015, at just 20 years old, David made history, not with a bat, but with his voice. He became the first active player in the minor league system to publicly come out as gay. It was a move that sent shockwaves through a sport long known for silence and coded locker room conversations. But David did not do it for fame. He did it to breathe. "Talking with my teammates, they gave me the confidence I needed," he said, revealing that honesty had become more important than comfort. His courage opened a door many did not even know was closed. It was not just about being a player, it was about being a pioneer. Though he stepped away from professional baseball not long after, David's impact echoes far beyond the scoreboard. His story continues to inspire countless young athletes who wonder if there is space for them in a game that rarely celebrates difference. He showed that being authentic is not a weakness, it is a form of leadership. And in a sport where silence once ruled, his voice became a rallying cry. Today, David stands not just as a former player, but as a symbol of quiet rebellion, of truth spoken when it matters most. And as we honor his bravery, it is worth asking, how many more talents are waiting to shine, if only the world made it safer to be seen? Stick with us, because the next story might just change what you think you know about sports and identity. T.J. House once stood tall on the pitcher's mound, commanding the game with a calm intensity that made batters uneasy. As a left-handed pitcher for the Cleveland Guardians and later the Toronto Blue Jays, he knew pressure. He thrived on it. But while fans saw a focused athlete chasing strikeouts and victories, few understood the personal storm he was navigating behind the scenes. For years, TJ lived with a secret that felt heavier than any lineup of batters he ever faced. Every inning he pitched, he carried the fear that living his truth might cost him everything he had worked for. When he came out publicly as gay in December 2022, it was not about headlines, it was about healing. TJ had already retired from professional baseball, but the weight of silence still lingered. His announcement was raw and deeply human, filled with the kind of honesty that makes people pause and listen. He spoke not just for himself, but for all the athletes who feel invisible or unworthy because of who they are. In doing so, he became more than a former major leaguer. He became a voice. A reminder that bravery does not always happen under bright lights, but often in quiet, vulnerable moments. In March 2024, TJ married his partner Ryan Neitzel in a celebration that felt like the true grand slam of his life. Surrounded by loved ones, he embraced a chapter that was written entirely on his own terms. No longer defined solely by stats or contracts, TJ House now stands for something far more powerful: authenticity, love, and freedom. His journey reminds us that it is never too late to step into the light, and sometimes that is where the real victories happen. Could more players follow in his footsteps? Maybe. But TJ already proved what matters most: the courage to be yourself. Glenn Burke. Long before pride flags flew in stadiums and hashtags celebrated inclusion, Glenn Burke was already making quiet history with every swing of the bat. Born in Oakland, California in 1952, Burke was a gifted athlete whose speed and charisma lit up the diamond. In the late 1970s, he played for the Los Angeles Dodgers and later the Oakland Athletics, showing flashes of brilliance and earning the admiration of teammates and fans alike. But while the stands cheered his athletic prowess, few knew the silent weight Glenn carried behind the scenes. He was a gay man in a sport that had no space for that truth. It was not just the locker room whispers or management's cold shoulders. It was the unspoken reality that being himself could cost him everything. When Burke retired from Major League Baseball, he stepped into a different kind of spotlight, not as a player, but as a pioneer. He came out publicly, becoming the first former MLB player to do so, and in doing that, he shattered a wall that had long silenced countless athletes. His openness was radical for its time. In a culture where silence was survival, Glenn chose to speak. He once said, "They can't ever say now that a gay man can't play in the majors, because I'm a gay man and I made it." With those words, he redefined courage, not with a bat or glove, but with unapologetic truth. And while he never got the sports legacy he deserved during his career, his bravery gave voice to a movement still echoing through the game today. Glenn Burke's life was not a fairy tale. He faced rejection, financial hardship, and a world that was not ready to honor his truth. But his story is more than struggle. It is a legacy of defiance and dignity. From inventing the high five to standing proudly in his truth when it was dangerous to do so, Glenn left behind more than stats. He left behind a symbol of what it means to live with integrity. For every athlete today who steps onto the field without hiding who they are, Glenn Burke helped open that door. And his name deserves to be remembered not just in baseball history, but in the broader story of LGBTQ+ courage. Long before baseball embraced diversity, Billy Beane was already living a quiet revolution. One pitch, one swing, one guarded moment at a time. From 1987 to 1995, he played Major League Baseball with admirable discipline and consistency, donning the uniforms of the Detroit Tigers, Los Angeles Dodgers, and San Diego Padres. To fans, he was a reliable outfielder. To teammates, a fierce competitor. But behind his strong performances and stoic demeanor, Billy was hiding a truth that Major League Baseball was not ready to hear. In an era when locker rooms echoed with rigid expectations of masculinity, he lived in silence, carrying the heavy burden of being a gay man in a sport that had no place for that kind of honesty. When he retired, many assumed he would fade quietly from the sport. Instead, he reemerged as a voice that baseball never knew it needed. In 1999, Billy Beane publicly came out, becoming only the second former MLB player in history to do so. The timing was courageous, the climate was far from accepting, but his message was clear: authenticity matters. Rather than retreat, Billy leaned in. He joined Major League Baseball in a new role, one that allowed him to reshape its future. As the Senior Vice President for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, he worked tirelessly to ensure that no young athlete would ever have to choose between their identity and their passion for the game. Through education, advocacy, and personal testimony, Billy transformed pain into purpose and silence into a rallying cry. Billy Beane passed away on August 20, 2024 after a brave battle with leukemia, but his legacy stands taller than any stadium lights. He was not just a ball player, he was a change maker, a pioneer, and a man who helped rewrite the unwritten rules of sport. His life reminds us that courage is not always loud. Sometimes it is found in quiet decisions made behind closed doors, or in one person's choice to speak when silence feels safer. As we close this chapter, we remember Billy not just for how he played the game, but for how he changed it forever. If his story moved you, we invite you to share your thoughts below and honor the lives of those who dared to live their truth. These athletes have proven that truth is stronger than tradition, and that being yourself is the bravest act of all. Which story resonates with you the most? Leave your thoughts below. We read them all. And if you believe sports should be a space for everyone, subscribe and share this video, because somewhere a future star is waiting to hear that they belong.